a bit of a treat for you today on Migrating to Australia, the podcast. This is a special episode, something we haven't done before. David basically is stepping through how he would do an introductory discussion with a new client and going through the issues that are confronting them. Today, it's about engineering. Is engineering a suitable pathway for permanent migration, skilled permanent migration, for an actual couple? So it's pretty much an unedited discussion that took place with David and a couple of engineers, or would-be, wannabe permanent migrant engineers, and with me contributing hopefully something useful. Migrating to Australia, the podcast where all of your migration stories are aired and all of your migration issues are vented. I'm Grant Williams. I press the buttons and try and make things sound good in this wonderful constricted pipeline internet situation that we've all got now. And I'm joined all the time by the migration titan, Australia's foremost and most handsome migration agent, migration solicitor, David Bongiorno, principal of Bongiorno and David Bongiorno and Associates. Hello,
Great.
Dave.
Good afternoon. How are you, mate? You having a good Saturday so far?
Oh, Dave, I think you've got the inside knowledge. You know that today has been a pretty hectic but enjoyable Saturday.
And we've got one more podcast to get through today, and this is a very interesting one. It's the first time we've actually had people who are interested in migration appear on the show. Not people who've already migrated here, people in the process, but people who are coming. And we've got Liam in the United Kingdom, and he is with Amanda.
And David, remember that these guys are in the second most popular occupation that you mention on the podcast. The first one is accounting, and accounting is a big red cross for migration.
No one should ever come. No one should ever come and study accounting ever.
But we listened to your podcast on that, and yeah.
but the one that the profession that you mention often, David, and that we know there's a real dearth of them here in Australia, is engineers. And Amanda and Liam are both engineers.
Amanda's got a master's degree, and Liam's about to finish his bachelor's. Amanda, you've got a master's degree. How many years of study is a master's degree in the United Kingdom?
So the whole course was 4 years. So it was a 4 years integrated master's. So it would have been an extra year for a master's then.
Do you come from a family of engineers?
I actually do. Both my sisters do civil engineering as well.
You're the one who's a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
And how about you, Liam? Are you from a family of engineers or a professional family?
A professional family, but yeah, not necessarily of engineers. Actually, I think in my heritage, I think I'm the first to actually get a degree, which is obviously all the more common in our generation. But my father was in sales, but I have uncles and grandparents who were in kind of engineering type roles, but more hands-on in the military and things. So I've taken a slightly different route, but similar sort of area, I guess.
Yeah, I looked at your resume, and you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were the Apprentice of the Year. You won a national award, so you've gone from the trade to the profession of engineering.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I left school and I did an advanced apprenticeship scheme with Mercedes-Benz and trained with them. So I was in a vocational and technical role first, which I love, by the way, and still very much has been a part of my life along the side and studying. And I just wanted to progress. An opportunity came up to progress those skills, so I took it basically, and do it while you're young. I really enjoyed it, being able to apply what I know, kind of working in as a technician, they call it now, but a mechanic traditionally, in engineering has been very useful indeed.
You're both mechanical engineers, or Amanda, you've graduated, so you're there, and Liam, you're nearly there. You finish next month?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Very noble profession, engineering, misunderstood by those who are not in the engineering world. As mechanical engineers, what can you work in? What areas of engineering can you work in?
Oh, it's very broad. You can work into the design sector, heating, ventilation, air conditioning sectors. I'm currently working on renewable energy, integrating like batteries. What else?
Thermal batteries, yeah.
You can work on robotics. You can work in. You can kind of transfer into aeronautical.
Yeah, I think we both chose it, to be honest, because it is traditionally very broad, and they usually only requires you to do a little bit of extra work to divert into whatever takes your fancy at the end of it. So I think both coming out of our degrees, so Amanda graduated last year, have it takes you a few years to see where you want to go with that. And I think especially coming up now that with COVID, it creates a unique opportunity for government to implement more sustainability and renewable. That's something I'm really interested to get involved with, and I see big things kind of happening in Australia. They're piloting quite a lot of large projects in that area in kind of non-renewable plastics, and how we're making those into oils and very valuable products. So it's an exciting time to be in that, and it'll only take us both a little bit of work to hone our skills into that area because of the level of maths and physics and things that we learn.
So are we ahead or behind when it comes to renewables? You said we're creating many exciting projects. Are they projects that are new to the world or new to Australia? I mean, where do we sit in terms of mechanical engineering?
I think it's up and coming. I think in the next 10 years or so, I think there'll be a lot, large improvements in Australia. I know, for example, I've been looking at how many district cooling systems that they're in Australia, and there's a lot of projects that they're working on to start building them. That's actually very environmentally friendly compared to standalone independent cooling systems, so to speak. So I think it's up and coming. It's progressing in Australia at the moment. So it's a good time to kind of go in there and kind of contribute, I think.
And going in is exactly what you guys want to do. You've put a visa in the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, David,
when did you the 476 visa, the skilled graduate visa? When did you apply?
That was in March, early March, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, everything's been uploaded, everything's been provided. What have they advised you the waiting time is at the moment?
So on the IMI account, our migration agent sent us a screenshot saying 13 to 17 months, but obviously on the actual Home Affairs website it says up to 18 months. So it could be any and possibly even later now because of COVID. We don't know.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? We don't know how long COVID will be.
Yeah.
No, we don't know. But as I was explaining to Grant, I think we were discussing just before, being an engineer or in a STEM-related subject is, I think, it's always going to kind of be in demand. So we remain very optimistic about it. We were hoping to come out by the end of the year on a working holiday visa. In the interim, whilst our graduate visa is processed, that has its own restrictions in terms of employability. Obviously, you can't work for more than 6 months with a single employer, I believe. But we're both very our heart is very much set on Australia. We get a really good feeling about it from the research we've been doing. Where we both predict it will be in kind of 10 years. And I think traditionally, to answer your question a bit more on earlier, where do Australia sit? Traditionally, I think Australia is seen as being a little bit behind the times in terms of technical development. But they have a great deal of space. You have a great deal of space there, and the weather is obviously generally much better than the UK. And I'm very interested in solar and the studies and things going on over there, and the projects, they're forefront because of the space and the ability to get those projects running without too much, problems with legislation and things like that.
Is that an issue in the United Kingdom? Legislation, does that get in the way of development?
I think so, very much. Yeah. We, China can build a hospital in a week, to combat coronavirus response, and it would take us a year. I think here it's very much politics and legislation here, and it can get in the way, definitely.
David, sorry, David. Before we talk more generally, if we're going to talk about the 476 visa, can you step through the process with that one and how it's different to the 485, and then talk about what Amanda and Liam might be able to do using the working visa that's available?
Well, it's a great opportunity. The 476 is for guys and girls from overseas who come from universities with engineering degrees recognised under particular accords. With Amanda and Liam, it would probably be guys the Washington Accord.
That's right.
Yeah. And mechanical engineers, in the migration world, engineers and health professionals, allied health professionals as well, are gold. So they're always on the list. They always will be on the list. And that's why it's exciting that two mechanical engineers in their early mid-20s want to come to Australia and contribute. The 476 gives them 18 months. It's a great time. And it's you guys will agree. I mean, as two mechanical engineers, I don't want you wasting your time on working holiday visas because of what you quite rightly said, Liam, the 6-month restriction.
Yeah.
And, the 476 would be fabulous to get, gives you 18 months, because what we have is a point system, and the 189 visa is the holy grail, the Mecca, the Nirvana for anybody who wants to migrate to Australia. It's becoming increasingly hard.
Okay.
95 points at the moment. But what's good is that in April, May's round hasn't come out, and we don't believe a May round was actually conducted. How long have you guys been following the invitation rounds for now?
We actually don't know that much about the permanent residency visa. That's kind of why we wanted to speak to you, to kind of find out how we can transition from ours to permanent residency.
It's beautiful. Go on, Liam.
Sorry, David. We did had a brief look earlier this week, just to build up a bit more of an idea before we came on. But yes, from what I could see online, it suggested 75 points. So I'm not sure where the difference came from.
What it is, I'll hold it up to the screen. I'll bring it up on my iPhone. The invitation round, we have a point system, and the story is that you're assessed on your age, your English, your degree, your time spent studying in Australia, your Australian work experience, your overseas work experience, your credential community language, any professional year you've done in Australia. You guys are graduates from the United Kingdom, so you don't get the Australian study points, but you get assessed on your age, your level of English, which is just crazy because you're native speakers. But what you have to do is an English test. It's madness.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
Hang on, David.
Unnecessary, but you've got to do it for the points.
Okay, I've got my whiteboard. I've got my whiteboard, and we're going to go through the categories. All right. So age.
So Amanda would be the main applicant for a 189 visa, simply because she's already finished and she's. How old are you now, Amanda?
I'm actually 22. I'll be 23 in the summer, in August.
Okay, 22. And Liam, you're 26.
So how many points?
Almost 26. Okay. So what we'd make a determination when you're on the 476, we'd make a determination. Liam, when you finish, the good thing is this, you get 30 points for your age. So you might be the main applicant. 30 points for your age, 20 points for your English, 15 points for your degree. Now, you have a partner, and you guys have been living together for how long now?
Pretty much 18 months.
Yeah.
Lovely. To be recognised as a de facto couple, should you choose to be de facto, you've got to have at least 12 months or more of 12 months and a day minimum of living together in cohabitation. So do you have your names on leases, names on utilities, gas, water, electricity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joint gym memberships?
Yeah.
I'll put your engineers, joint library cards as well.
Joint library cards, that's it.
Good, Liam. I like that. It's good to hear. But and public recognition of your relationship, because you're both young, it's always nice. Any invitations to show you are a couple, you'd include to show that you are partners. 25th birthdays, 30th birthdays, even 21st birthdays. Mum and Dad, Liam, obviously know about Amanda, and Amanda, Mum and Dad obviously know about Liam.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got ample material to show you're a couple. And what happens is, because Amanda's skilled and Amanda has English and Amanda has an occupation, you get 10 points for being a skilled partner. So you get age points, you get English points, you get degree points, and you get partner points. And what you do on the 476, if you get work as a mechanical engineer, what you can do as the main applicant, Liam, or Amanda, the main applicant, whichever. Liam would probably be the main applicant simply because he has older 4 years on Amanda, and you're in the major point category. So 30, 50, 65, 75. I hate maths, that's why I became a lawyer.
Yep.
50, 65, 75.
75, and then
you've got
and then
75
we want
points. Quite rightly, you've got 75 points. For independent migration, you need 95. All right? Now, to get state-sponsored, you don't need 95. Have you guys been to Australia before?
No.
We actually haven't, no. I have family there and a lot of friends there, but I've never visited myself yet.
Where is family, Liam? Which part of the country?
Brisbane, or suburbs.
Oh, okay. All right. Lovely part of the world.
Yeah.
Where are you guys thinking about doing your 476 when it comes through?
Well, we were discussing with Grant prior to he made some suggestions about being fluid. Yeah, so we are very fluid. It depends on the demand of our skills, but ultimately I think we would like to settle in Brisbane if that's possible. But we're very open, to be honest. We're young and flexible.
Okay. One of the bonus point sectors can come from credential community language. So, Amanda, how's your Arabic?
It's good. I'm fluent.
Oh, perfect. There you go. So all of a sudden, Amanda, you may be the applicant as opposed to Liam. So it's a movable feast. But what happens is, if you're the main applicant and you pass the credential community language test in Arabic, that's 5 points.
Okay.
It's also good to note that by the time we apply for permanent residency, I will be 25 in Australia. So
okay, that's lovely. Let's look at that. So 30 for Amanda, 20 for Amanda, 15 for degree, 10 for having Liam as a highly skilled partner, 5 for Arabic, and let's say 5 for Australian work experience, because one of you'll get a job. You have to get a job.
Yeah,
No choice. No choice.
Really keen to, actually.
50, 65, 75, 80, 85. Okay. Now, there's ways to do it. And if you go to Queensland and you work in Queensland on a visa, there may be 491 and or 190 options, okay? The 491 visa is a bit of an effort, to be honest, because what you're doing is you're going to a regional area, working in a regional area, not Melbourne, not Sydney, not Brisbane, and you work in your nominated occupation. It's a 5-year visa. Have at least 3 years and 1 day in that region, in that occupation, because you're not going to want to work in any other occupation after all the effort and blood and sweat and tears it pours into. No, seriously. Engineers don't become anything else. If engineers become anything else, they usually become doctors. This is like lawyers become teachers and vice versa.
Yeah.
And the story is with a 491 visa, that's a 5-year visa. Spend 3 years and 1 day minimum in a region, Cairns, Townsville, and then you're eligible for a 191 visa. The 191 visa is permanent residency. Now, the scores are 95 at the moment. They're incredibly high. Incredibly high. And I don't believe that anybody would be finding Australia an attractive destination to migrate if the average accountants are higher. They're 100. And this, next month they could be 105. Next month they could be 95, and the general score could be 90. But with mechanical engineer, what I'm going to do is look just quickly at the last table for the April round and see what the score was there. And the story is that immigration changes, the scores change. It's a movable feast. And here we go. Let's have a look. The government website, homeaffairs.gov.au, is good for only 2 or 3 things, nothing else. The rest of it's rubbish. It's good to show points, but even then you've got to make sure how you interpret them. It's good to show the invitation round. Now, the invitation round, they only got as public release the 11 April round, and the scores were 100 for accountants, 95 for mechanical engineers. 95. All right. I don't see how it can continue to be 95.
It seems very high.
Oh, Liam, it's insane. It's insane. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
But if you get Australian work experience in your 18 months, you get 5 points Australian work experience.
What about further study, David? It's something I'd be very interested in conducting. I know, obviously, permanent residency, I think, is preferred. I'm not sure if it's essential for further study, but I would definitely look to
further study. What would happen? What's very common for young guys and girls from the United Kingdom, Europe, anywhere there's the 417 visa or the 462 visa, they'll come on a working holiday visa. They'll do some work, and they'll go, gee, I love Australia. I'd like to upskill before I return, or I'd like to settle down with the partner I've met and not return. And so, as an Englishman, Liam, there's always opportunity to study. And what study does, it gives you more time in Australia. What study also does is give you Australian study, 5 points. And if you do a professional year, a further 5 points. Okay? And so then you'd crack 95.
Yeah.
I suppose the only downside is cost.
Yeah, in fact, international fees are extortionate.
They are.
David, I was wondering when we were talking before we actually pressed the button before you joined us. Being keen on Queensland, and with Gladstone and Townsville and Mackay being hubs for the mining industry, I thought there might be an opportunity for the 491, and with cost and everything for studying and then having to go through the process again, does 491 offer an advantage for the independent migration route for either one?
491's provisional. It's not temporary and it's not permanent, but it leads on the provision of successful 3 years, 1 day minimum. You're then eligible to apply for a 191. So it actually takes longer.
But does it make it easier to achieve in terms of amassing points?
You get 15 points if you are nominated by a state or a territory. And what we'd have to do is look at the 491 list at the time of application and make sure that there was provision for mechanical engineers. These lists change. They chop and change. Immigration's a movable feast. What's on the 189, what's on the medium long-term strategic skill list for the 189, 190 and 491 today might change July 1, might change January 1. But generally speaking, mechanical engineering is the safe option for independent migration. Generally, because it's complex, we need it, and it requires a lot of effort. The story with the 491, that's to plug regional and get people working in regional areas. Grant raises a good point about the mining towns, the mining hubs. There's opportunity there. I mean, also too, the other thing is what you could look at if you wanted to do further studies, perhaps consider Western Australia.
Perfect.
Because Western Australia has a very generous list for graduates, very generous. And that's quite simply because most people migrate and study and migrate to Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. So there's lots of options out there, but come here on the 417 working holiday visa as two UK citizens, or come on the 476 and have a look around. Have a look around.
So my question is in your experience, how often or how likely do you think it would be to get sponsored if we were to find work in engineering?
Great question. What happens with engineers? What happens with everybody who wants a working visa, a 482 working visa? They have the eligible qualifications, which you guys have, but you need 2 years of work experience.
Okay.
And when you've got 2 years of work experience post-qualification, you're in a position to be sponsored. It's a competitive process, and it's a very difficult process for the 482 visa. But what you've got your qualifications. What you've got to have are 2 years of work experience. That would be verified by P45s, P46s, or if you were here, contract, tax return, group certificate, reference letter, all of these things.
Would 1 year here, so like I've got 1 year experience now as an engineer, and then 1 year in Australia count for that?
It would put you in the running to be considered, absolutely, because it's 2 years of work experience, and that would be demonstrated by all relevant documents, your employment, your reference letters, pay slips, everything. It has to be, and your occupation is obviously you're a fully qualified mechanical engineer, and you're working as a mechanical engineer at the moment, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Lovely. That's 1 year that definitely counts. And what tactically you could do, if whilst Liam studied, you could work. I mean, there's many permutations to think about. What happens is, I mean, study would realistically be how far away, Liam?
Ooh. Well, I guess if we really like it, within a year it could be.
And you'd shop around, you'd look at all the states and territories and universities. See, the story with Western Australia, it's very generous, but then, the generosity might be because no one's there.
Yeah.
And I say that very gently because I don't want to offend anybody in Western Australia, but, I mean, Grant and I, if we were migrating from the United Kingdom, we'd go to Melbourne, Sydney or Brisbane.
Yeah.
Because that's where the action is. That's not to say there's not action elsewhere, but the biggest cities are where the biggest opportunities are. You don't go after your degree from Portsmouth, and you don't go and practice in Bristol. You go to London or Manchester, right? It's the same deal.
Yeah.
It's the same deal. But mechanical engineer, if you came and did further studies, did a master's degree, master's is 2 years, Liam.
Yeah.
What that would do is enable you to apply for the 485 visa. And that's a good visa because it gives you time to consolidate, get more points. Amanda trails and works as a mechanical engineer, as a spouse, de facto spouse. That's why I was asking you earlier about the evidence to show you're established as a couple.
Yeah, no, we've lodged our visa through a reputable migration agent, and they were very thorough with those checks. So,
that's really good. That's important. Absolutely. Yeah, good. That's really good.
I have a question, David. Sorry. What puts me in a bit more of a difficult position, because I love engineering and what it represents and how it's going to enable me to solve real world problems, but I don't have the exact relevant experience as such. But what I do have is, I think what I can make out from is an almost equally valuable qualification as a mechanic, having done an apprenticeship, a recognised apprenticeship with a global brand, and have multiple years experience in that. So I don't know if that's more valuable to me in terms of immigration and what restrictions that might put on me. Because that trade is very valuable in Australia as well, if not more valuable than a mechanical engineer. So it's difficult.
How long? A very general question. How long have you been away from actually getting greasy and working the cars? How long have you been away from being a mechanic? No, I don't stop. I love it. Honestly, it's something I'm very passionate about. Officially, I haven't worked in a role on the books for since I've been a student, so for 4 years. But I do it a lot. I never registered my own company, but I do it a lot alongside study. You need verifiable work experience.
Yeah.
So if you've been off on the tools, if you've been on the tools off the books, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But the story is that, you know, what makes you interesting as a potential employee for a mechanical engineering business or an engineering business full stop is you've got the trade and the profession.
Right.
And that makes you very valuable.
Yeah.
But the story is that if you came to study, what happens with the 485 visa? It would be your first student visa to Australia. And what would happen by virtue of that, you'd have a 2-year 485 visa after you finished your master's in engineering. And you're not going to be 32 for quite some time, and Amanda's not going to be 32 for a long time. And what that means, you're still in the major point category, which is pretty awesome. It's a good place to be. The major point category is 25 to 32.
Okay.
So if you did a 2-year master's and then a 2-year 485, you're still 25 to 32.
Yeah.
Okay. And that gives you the opportunity to get 12 months of work experience, gives you the opportunity to do a professional year. The program is slated towards those who study in Australia and who are a bit older and have fluent English. It always sounds ridiculous to say to 2 English people, to UK citizens, you've got to do an English test. By virtue of your passports, you don't, but you need to do it for permanent residency, otherwise you won't get the requisite points. All right? So hypothetically, let's say you did a master's, so you get 30 points for your age, you get 20 points for your English, 15 points for your degree, 5 points for your Australian study, 5 points for your professional year, 5 points if you did Australian work experience, and then 10 points because Amanda is highly skilled and is an engineer. So 50, 65, 70, 75, 80, 90. If Amanda starts, so you don't want to study again, Amanda, you've already got a master's.
Yeah, no more studying for me. I'm done.
Well, Amanda's going to have to work to pay for Liam to study.
That's it. And that's again why you probably want to work in Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane, or maybe Adelaide. Adelaide at a pinch, because Adelaide would open up opportunities for the 189, the 190, the 491, and the 485. So there's a big push to make Adelaide a player like Melbourne, like Sydney, like Brisbane.
David, for the study period, I wouldn't write off Townsville either, because there's
JCU.
There's JCU and there's going to be opportunities, and even if and a lot of the masters can be done at, you know, where you're not sitting at the campus all the time, but there's certainly going to be opportunities for employment for both of them certainly in that Townsville region.
Well, so you get regional study then. If you completed your entire qualification up at JCU, you'd be on 95.
Extra points. That was what I was thinking. And then,
lovely city.
And then there's the opportunity that you might even get lucky and meet an employer who is long term, and you know, and then you've got the 491 opportunity again. So there's only one thing we don't want you to do. We want you to promise you don't go to Tasmania. All right. You must look, Tasmania's lovely for Easter. Look, I like Tassie. I like Tassie a lot, David, but I wouldn't be going.
It's beautiful, but there's no opportunity.
I wouldn't be going there as a mechanical engineer. That wouldn't be my first choice.
No way. Yeah. Different story. But see, point categories, by choosing JCU in Townsville, or even going up. I don't know where the mechanical engineering campus is at JCU. Is it Cairns or Townsville?
But also there's QUT. So they might have flexible things that support the mining industry from QUT or from Griffith. So I reckon that would be something to look into.
So what you've got, that's why the 476 is better than the 417, because you've got 18 months, not 12, and it would be an absolute waste of your intellectual capital and all your hard study to do bushwork to get a second working holiday visa. Waste of time. I don't ever want engineers who come to Australia to do working holiday visas. I want them to do 476s for the study so that they can get into the system and get migration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. And, I mean, you'll have no shortage of work, Liam, local Mercedes dealership or master dealership getting work, with your background. And Amanda, I mean, your master's qualified, so you'll have no problems either. The only thing is we don't know when the doors will open. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
International students, rumour has it, July, August, but that has not been confirmed.
Yeah.
When backpackers come in remains to be seen. When everybody else comes in remains to be seen. But what Grant and I will be doing is bleating it out in the podcast the moment the doors are open, doing a special podcast, and we'll keep everybody posted. So you guys, I mean, does this give you a flavour of what you've got? I mean, because you've done the 476 with an agent, he or she would have told you quite a lot. But to segue, you need to get either some study happening or get some work happening. And the deal is that Eastern Seaboard is primarily where most action is. But if you're going to study, look at Perth maybe, look at Adelaide maybe. They present opportunities that don't exist in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane because they want to attract highly skilled, highly educated people such as yourselves.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, David. Yeah.
David.
And the thing is this. Don't be backward coming forward. Push. You must push.
Yeah.
And you're competing against locals and you're competing against internationals who've studied here. So you've got to be that extra bit forceful, for want of a better term, using polite British reserve, but iron underneath.
Yes.
Well put.
David, Amanda and Liam are the perfect example of people who take some action and do the right things. They've done the thing that you always say people need to do, and that's reach out and get appropriate advice before they lodge an application. So well done for using a registered migration agent. We're
very happy that you've got a registered migration agent to do it, because very often we hear too many sad stories.
Yeah.
And the thing is this, you guys are clearly very, very switched on, in a practical, intellectual way, and you don't want to waste your shot.
Not at all.
And you don't want to waste your shot.
And they're obviously very clever, David, because they've been listening to the podcast, and then Amanda's reached out, and if anyone's interested, this is how you do your consultations, isn't it, David?
That's how I do the consultations, and basically what we look at all the options, and always hark back, guys, to your age, your English level, your time spent studying here, time spent studying in the United Kingdom, your actual degree qualifications, and your Australian work experience, your UK work experience. When you come to Australia on your graduate visa, your 476, when you come on your 476, bring everything with you and upload it to the cloud as well.
Yeah,
that's another thing. We don't want you having mum or dad or sister to have to go back to uni and get the transcripts or get this or get that.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, we've got to remember, Grant, these are engineers. They're not like normal people. Highly disciplined, highly focused. We're big fans of engineers.
It's already all in the cloud.
It's already there.
Good. Do you know, I'll tell you something rather funny. You know who my best referrers are? Engineers. Do you know who I have least engagement with because they can do it themselves? Engineers. Engineers go, look, there's this great bloke, David. He told us, and because you're a doctor, dentist, lawyer, teacher, go and see him. But engineers get it. And the process, it's a process. And you guys are trained to follow process perfectly. The only thing is, I keep harking back, we're terribly sorry you have to do an English test.
That's okay. It should be easy, right?
Oh, it is. It's easy. It's no reflection of reading, writing, listening, or speaking. It's a reflection of how good you are at doing a test in reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Now, we spoke to someone earlier today, David, who has English as an equal language, bilingual education, and he told us that he did the Pitman test and got 8s in every band.
The Pearson test.
The Pearson test, sorry, and got 8s in every band, so maximum points. Well done.
80 in everything, 9 equivalent, absolutely. You guys, the test is valid for 3 years. Now, I don't know how much it costs in the United Kingdom. It costs $330 here. So it's about 150 quid.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, that's valid for 3 years. And so it might be cheaper to do it here. It'll certainly be easier to do it here when the doors open because we've got test centres everywhere.
Okay.
Now, what other questions do you guys have?
Well, for me, you've answered everything, so I don't know. Do you have any more?
Amanda, you love in Australia, Amanda, because half of Lebanon lives here as well.
Yeah,
I heard in Sydney. I heard that's
Melbourne, everywhere.
I actually have some Lebanese friends in Sydney and in Melbourne.
Oh yeah, huge Lebanese popular, and Liam, there's half of England lives here as well, of course. So.
Yeah, no.
And if they don't live here, they're here on holiday.
Yeah.
That's it. So, Liam, you had a few questions. What questions do you have?
Well, I think as an engineer, I try to pursue a lot of paths or keep them open at once at least. I don't know. I think I really appreciate both your advice and opinions on trying to build connections and things like that, which I'm already working on. Obviously, it's still kind of early doors yet, but you can never be too early as such. Well, I think it's really, we've obviously both never visited, and it's just really hard to get a real grasp of what the industry is like without being there. So what we're really keen to do is just save loads of money, be frugal for a few more months, and just move out. And with my skills as a mechanic, like you say, I should have no problem in sourcing work to begin with, and then it will get us a really good feel of what we can do and where we can go and what industry is looking for and what we can assist with. So yeah, it keeps the scope quite wide, I think. But yeah,
Sorry, I cut you off. Go on.
I'll just say, we're really keen just to get over and try it out. We just hear I've spoken to a lot of people, a lot of friends. Problem is that as well, not a lot of people understand engineering or the industry. So getting opinions and advice is somewhat difficult. So, but when we're out there, I have no doubt that it should be very easy to, you get a feel, don't you?
The only thing you don't want to do, if you guys own your home or your apartment in the United Kingdom, don't sell it. I say to everybody, don't sell everything until you've got permanent residency. So if you're homeowners, apartment owners, hold on to it if you can. Don't want anybody who's migrating to sell anything unless if they can avoid selling, don't sell. Don't finance a trip to come here to apply for migration by selling your property. All right, it's really important. When you've got your visa for your permanent residency, what you can do, because you're both UK citizens, is consider citizenship. That's one of the joys. Australia and the United Kingdom recognise dual citizenship, and dual citizenship is not a problem from the UK or Australian end. To be a citizen, you have to have at least 4 years in Australia. The first 3 years can be temporary residency, so that could be the 500 visa if you study. It could be the 417, which I don't want you to do because it wastes your talents and minds as engineers, because you have to do the 6-month work rule. The 476 is wonderful. It gives you 18 months to get some engineering. And then what happens is in that time, you can get some permanent residency. And so the story is 4 years in Australia. The first 3 years can be temporary or permanent. The fourth year must be permanent. And in the first 3 years, no more than 275 days outside Australia. And in the fourth year, no more than 90 days outside Australia. And that must be a PR year. Then you're eligible to apply for citizenship. The test would take you 2 minutes each, no problem whatsoever. And then there's a ceremony. Because of COVID, they're doing 15-minute video ceremonies. But obviously COVID will not be with us forever. Inshallah, or shallah, or khala. And the story is that then there's a beautiful ceremony. And I don't have in my client base one UK citizen, not one who hasn't become a citizen of Australia, not one, because you can. If for some reason you decided not to, PR goes for 5 years. In the 5 years to maintain it, you've got to spend a minimum of 2 years and 1 day in Australia to get another 5 years. If you went and worked on some Middle Eastern project where the bucks were big and tax-free, and you spent 1 year, 11 weeks, 11 months, 3 weeks, 6 days, you get a 1 year visa.
Okay.
All right. It's tough, but being engineers, you're in as good a position as anyone to get the points. I don't see it staying at 95. I don't see it's too high. It's too high. You guys coming to do, or Liam, you coming to do tertiary study at postgrad level, that's people who are in the 25 to 32 category are most sought after and are more likely, because of the points awarded and what points they can get in Australia, are more likely to get it than people who are 18 to 24. And then when you hit over 33 to 39, you start to lose points. So you're in the good category.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So how long has it been 95 points for?
Too long. About 2 months, 3 months.
Why is it so high, David, in your opinion?
They're not wanting to take many people in at the moment, but what happens is with 300,000 people have left Australia already because of COVID, the score has to drop because no one's going to go to university here because it's too high to get PR after. In fact, if you were 18 and 19 each, I'd say do your bachelor's here in the United Kingdom and then come do your master's when you're a bit older. It's too hard. It's too hard.
Yeah.
And jobs for Australians is, well, Grant and I are not big fans of that. That's a bit of a bollocks excuse because I find that my migrant clients get the jobs that Australians can't get, or they do the jobs that Australians don't want to do.
And
yeah,
Amanda and Liam, we have a constituency of the governing party at the moment, which their number one thing is there's too many migrants. We've got to cut migration. And because of the whole equal opportunity thing, if they want to stop Asians coming here, which is a big push, and I think you guys have got the same thing with Caribbean and African migration and subcontinental migration, and everyone's saying there's too many. Well, we got the same thing, but that also means that nobody gets to come here. They drop the numbers. We've got a point score that is applies to everybody, and that's how they keep people out. So hopefully the economic conditions change and forces a change,
which is wonderful.
Which we hope for. But as I said before, everything we do here, David, you can give advice, but in the podcast we only give general guidance, and I only give opinion. I only give opinion because I'm not an expert.
And what we do, when you actually get the visa, when you get the graduate visa, the 476 visa, when you get the 476 visa, talk to me, and I'll help you devise a strategy that I'll commit to and you commit to, in accordance with the law at the time. Because it's so hard now. It only has to ease because no one goes to uni. No one will go to uni. It's too expensive, and there's no guaranteed return. A degree, yes, of course, that's wonderful from an Australian institution, but there's no pathway to migration after if the scores are too high. All right?
Yeah.
Good.
And in your opinion, if you think it drops, I'm not sure what it was before. You said it was 2-3 months. It's been 95.
It's been 90. It's been 90. It's been 95. It's been 85 for general. People who do accounting are hiding to, they're on a pathway to nothing because the story is it's too high. It's 5-10 points higher than engineering and other occupations. They change. The 491 is a way to come in, but I don't want you guys, frankly, seriously, I don't want you working as engineers in Ballarat or Bendigo. You haven't gone to uni, gone to London to live and work, to come and live in Ballarat or Bendigo. Ballarat and Bendigo are lovely places, but, opportunity for you as highly skilled mechanical engineers is in the big cities, not the town.
Yeah.
Or the mining centres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We both want to make a real contribution and a difference. So we're willing to work very hard towards that, and seek out the best opportunity there. I have another question, David, if you don't mind.
No, of course, Liam. Go.
Just if you were me, so we were optimistic about kind of moving out by the end of the year. So the idea is to, I'm going to graduate very shortly, and it's just save as much money as we can in the shortest amount of time. Now, I can either pursue, short-term work in engineering to build my CV in that industry at the cost of, really suffering in terms of salary. So Prospects, an academic website in the UK, I'm not sure if they're in Australia too, they released a survey recently saying that 28% of graduate schemes have been cancelled or deferred in the UK. So
because of COVID. Yeah.
Because of COVID, yeah. So, what was already very competitive is now kind of extremely competitive. Also, traditionally, salaries are very low. But the benefit is, looks good for the CV. Now, obviously, in my line of work as a mechanic, I can walk into a very well-paying job, work all the overtime I need to build up funds. Also, rent here is very expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like so, but I can go and work as a mechanic. Perhaps I'm heavy vehicle trained as well, which is more desirable, I know, in Australia. So I could go and get some more experience there, and build more funds in the short term whilst we wait to migrate or immigrate.
It's a tough question. It's a very tough question.
It's a
very tough question.
David, perhaps doing one of the working visas and having a look around, and especially poking around those places that people don't go, like Townsville and Mackay.
That's why the 476 visa gives you 18 months, and that's a far more preferable visa than the working holiday because of that dreaded 6-month rule. And that's why. So you'd use the 476 to get up, get around, and basically visit and attend as many places, premises as possible, and see where your skill set can lend itself to employment.
David, just
in terms of raising money, gee, that's a tough call. I don't know. See,
David,
sweat blood.
David, I'm being really optimistic about that though, because if on the 476, both Amanda and Liam would have full-time work rights. Yes. So, Liam,
100%.
So Liam, as a heavy vehicle mechanic, Townsville, Central Queensland, screaming for the guys, and the money is huge compared to what he would earn.
It is, but he's a mechanical engineer.
Yes.
That's the difference.
But we're talking about an 18-month visa, and if Liam was working in the short term on a as a mechanic earning big bucks, that means Amanda can be working as a mechanical engineer, and then Liam can transition after maybe 6 months and add a year to him. I don't know. Does that work? Because I reckon
I'm always because they both work so hard and they're professionals, and you don't have Liam. You've been off the books for 4 years. Obviously, your skills haven't abandoned you. You don't want. If I were you, I'd want to bolster my resume with mechanical engineering work. And I would do my money work on the side in the United Kingdom until you're ready to come over. But if you can get a mechanical engineering job when you finish next month, take it with both hands. And when the graduate visa, this 476 comes through, push for skilled work as a mechanical engineer, because while the pay will be better, you've got to think about moving forward in the future.
Yeah.
And
anybody...
While it might have been a financial sacrifice, because as a heavy vehicle mechanic, the pay may well be better. In the long run, when you've got this resume that's, you've graduated with honours as well, haven't you? Or you will graduate with honours, correct?
I will.
Yeah. Gosh, if you guys start a family, your child will have to be a sports person or an entertainer. I'll be too intimidated. I love it.
Sorry, it's very early here, and I've had exams this week, and it's been short on sleep, so excuse the roughness.
No, not noticed at all. Because you use your background to generate cash jobs on the books, of course. But in terms of if you're offered a professional job as a mechanical engineer post graduation, take it with both hands. When you come here for the 476, look for nothing but mechanical engineering work, because you don't want to explain chunks of absences in your resume, but you also want to get runs on the board as a mechanical engineer, because that contributes to the Australian points. You get. See, the difference is this: the Australian work experience is 20 hours a week for a year. You'll obviously get, if you get a job, you're not going to get a part-time job, you get a full-time job, and that gives you 5 extra points if you're the primary applicant.
Okay.
So definitely pursue engineering. While you're there in Blighty, do some work to augment the income as a heavy-duty mechanic, motor vehicle mechanic. But aim, while you're in Blighty waiting for the visa, aim for professional work as well.
David, for any engineering employers who might happen to listen, this is really an online resume and job interview for Amanda and Liam, because it's obvious that they've listened to a podcast. They're on the other side of the world. They've reached out. They've already got some advice. They haven't thought, oh, that's all we need. They keep searching. They keep looking. They keep listening, and they keep learning.
Because they're engineers. They're hungry to learn and develop. That's why we love engineers. We do.
But they're the first engineers who have reached out to us. And I'm sure they're not the only ones listening. So for any potential employer, they should be reaching out and saying, "Hey, get Amanda and Liam to contact us." You know, and I'm going to be posting about this on LinkedIn, and basically saying that, hey, we spoke to these people. Here's the video. If you're an employer, bloody reach out.
Just don't agree for 2 for 1 deal. Not 2 for 1. All right.
But
we really appreciate that. That's very kind. What we were hoping to do out of the podcast, first of all, we were very surprised to see that nobody else had reached out from our profession, and there wasn't actually already covered. So, we wanted to be the first in there and to discuss it. We're hoping, that I know for sure that there will be other people in our situation graduating this year with uncertainty. There's still, Brexit is still about to happen. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that educated people will be looking longer term, and Australia presents a lot of opportunities. So hopefully this can answer some of the questions for them as well.
Absolutely. And the thing is this: it's a movable feast. So when the visas come, touch base again, and we'll talk the 491, the 189, the 190, and we'll look, Amanda, Liam, we'll look at the points, whether they've dropped, whether they've increased. And that's the thing to get out with the podcast when you talk to your peers who are graduating this next month, Liam, that things change. Scores rise, scores drop. I'd be very surprised if scores stayed this high for long, because otherwise you wouldn't come to Australia to study. You wouldn't come to Australia on a skilled graduate visa to work, because there's no incentive to stay for migration. It's got to drop. It has to drop.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when.
Of course, yeah. So, for that reason, we understand. We remain still optimistic,
Yeah, of course.
If a good thing about mechanical engineering is, I think actually the term mechanical engineer is utilised slightly differently outside of the UK, but specifically in this case in Australia, where I don't know whether the value is the same, but I see a lot of I subscribe to a lot of job alerts from SEEK and all across the board, and HVAC engineers is obviously a big one in Australia. Look at heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. The term mechanical engineer is often utilised in a more practical role. But I believe the value is the same whether you're field based as a mechanical engineer, you're office based in design, you're whatever it is. The scope is big, but I believe the value is the same. I don't know if you can shed any light on that sort of thing.
Well, the thing is this: the baseline is the Australian New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations, the ANZSCO. And mechanical, if a case officer gets your application across the desk for a 190, 491, 189 visa, they'll go, did Liam do X? Did Liam do Y? Did Liam do Z? So it's a matter of alignment with wherever you're in the field or if you're in the office. If you're doing the stipulated duties or, 75, 80% of the stipulated duties, you fulfill the requirement. And the Australian New Zealand Classification of Occupations is a good website to check. The latest is November 2019, the 1.3, ANZSCO 1.3. And you have a look at those duties for mechanical engineer and make sure that when you take on work, it's aligned. One of the big mistakes people make is taking work that's not aligned.
Oof.
Obviously, you don't paraphrase the duties in your job description at all, but you look at them at a higher level. You perform those duties at a higher level. A lot of people where people fall down, I give an example from accounting. They think they're working as an accountant. They've been designated as an accountant, but they're actually a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Oof, yeah.
So that might be like an engineering associate. You've got to make sure your salary, your duties, everything that you're doing is aligned with being a mechanical engineer and nothing less.
David, you...
Just a quick question, sorry. Now, just putting the worst case scenario, if we were to get out to us and let's say I can't find a mechanical engineering role and I was to just I was to find anything else just to be fluid and obviously keep us going. Financially, and now let's say I was to get a job in I don't know, finance or business or anything else, that would not count as experience for permanent residency.
It wouldn't count, correct? That's right, because it's not in your occupation or closely related. If you took a job that's closely related or on point, there's no issues.
Okay, so like for example, would project management in an engineering team, would that count, or
we'd have to align the job position description for project management with the ANZSCO description of mechanical engineer, see if it works. But the story is that whenever there's any occupation in any field, we always check it against the Australian New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations and see if it's the right designation or if there's an alternative. So, because your job has to be on point or closely related.
David, David, before you check out for the day, one of your tasks when you say hello to your family again is to send me an email with the link to the latest list, and I will forward that on to Amanda and Liam, and that will go on our website for this episode.
Yeah, beautiful.
And Amanda and Liam.
We also go up on podcast. Tell Grant, tell Liam and Amanda how we go Spotify and all the other ones.
I'm getting there. I'm in charge, pal.
We already know.
Now, Amanda and Liam are like all of our guests. We've loved all of our guests. But Amanda and Liam have done something that none of our other guests have done. So they are officially the first friends of the show. And as friends of the show, we want to be following your journey, Amanda and Liam. So the steps as you take. So keep us updated, however you would like to, and we will keep others updated. But also, I'm really interested to see how proactive you can be. Now, there's another podcast that I do, which is Careers Focused, and an episode with a high voltage engineer from, where was she from? Bolivia, Uruguay. I think it was. Now, she looked around for quite a while, but she got exactly the role she wanted and was employed before she came here. But she did a whole lot of reaching around, asking questions, hunting around LinkedIn, getting into the forums, getting into a whole lot of stuff, emailing people, asking them about their situations. So I'm going to send you the link for that when it is released, and you can check that, and I will ask Marina and Sonia if they can talk to you, because Sonia is active in Melbourne in really high value development projects. It's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes. So
that's very true.
So
that's very appreciated as well. Thank you.
You know, look, David knows I really like people who do something outside of the general route, because that's how the doors get opened. You've got to satisfy the points, but in terms of finding a job and finding a satisfying place to work and working where you want to, you've just got to talk to people.
And also too, Liam, I mean, they're very expensive, but they are the best cars on the planet, aren't they?
They are. I had my doubts, but they are.
They are, yeah.
Migrating to Australia, available on all the major platforms. Amanda and Liam found us, and David always does the right thing. Great, David. Great, Amanda. Fantastic, Liam. I'm really glad you reached out, and I hope there's some other people out there who find today's little chat interesting and helpful. David. Uru.